Car Con Carne live. It's Quarantine Con Carne. I'm in quarantine across the vast expanse of the World Wide Web. I have Callum O'Donnell. He is the Chicago brand ambassador for Aberlour single malt Scotch whiskey. It's International Whiskey Day, a blessed holiday for all of us. And you're ready. You've got all sorts of
got it all here. I have it all here ready and prepped.
All right, so we'll talk Scotch. We'll talk all about what you do. But first, Car Con Carne, which is effectively Quarantine Con Carne for the foreseeable future, is sponsored by C&H Financial Services. C&H Financial Services, when business gets back to normal, when the world gets back to normal, when things start to feel like they did all the way back in February, go to freeprocessingnow.com or call 855-600-2437, extension 999, and start saving money today. I want to point out my apparel tonight. I'm wearing a hoodie of the Atlas Moth Chicago band. Want to represent Chicago here. Not nearly as impeccably dressed as Callum O'Donnell tonight, who's wearing a blazer to a web chat at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. We can learn a thing or two from you.
You got to take pride in your appearance, especially. Although what I was considering just wearing a pair of boxers on the bottom, but I put my jeans on just for you.
I appreciate that. Very tasteful. Very tasteful. Callum, you couldn't work for Aberlour without the name Callum O'Donnell, could you? I mean, it seems like it's like your birthright to work for this company.
Well, I mean, the name O'Donnell's actually Irish, and obviously I'm working for a Scotch company. I'm originally from Scotland, but my father's family is from Ireland way back when. So yeah, I mean, there's that Celtic connection there. But often people, when they first meet me, they think that I'm Irish, and then I open my mouth, and then a lot of Americans aren't really sure. They don't quite have they aren't quite tuned into the differences, the nuances, if you like, of the Irish and the Scottish accent. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people do mention the name O'Donnell. They're like, "Oh my God, so you gotta be Irish," and I'm like, "Well,
wait, was that your American accent?"
That's my American. I have several American accents. I'm sure we'll get through them all, though.
Do it again. Say, "Oh my God, I can't even."
Oh my God, I can't even. Nailed it.
You totally nailed it.
Nailed it, man.
It seems to me like your gig as the brand ambassador for Aberlour, that's a dream job. It's like fantasy land.
Yeah, it's a pretty good job. I mean, I don't think being like a podcast host or a radio host is much worse. I think the best thing about this job, obviously, is that the people that you meet, and especially nowadays, whiskey has such an amazing following around the world, and it's amazing to see, people from all different walks of life that are getting involved in whiskey, whether it's Scotch like Aberlour or whether it's like a bourbon or an Irish whiskey, So it's that's probably the best part of the job. But there's also the perks that I'm never wanting for a bottle of good Scotch, which is always nice. So Friday night nightcap, it's always available if I need it.
You mentioned being all over the world. You've traveled everywhere. Is there a place on the planet that we'd be surprised by their whiskey consumption?
So, I mean, I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record to anyone that knows me, but last year or 2 years ago now, I lived in the Dominican Republic, and they drink whiskey like it's going out of fashion. I couldn't believe the amount of whiskey or Scotch even that those guys drink down there. I mean, obviously, you guys in the United States, by value, this is the biggest market in the world by value. But there's also, I lived in France for a time, and the French, they're the biggest consumer in the world of single malt Scotch. So if you were thinking it might be somewhere like China or even the United States or somewhere in Latin America like Brazil, it's not. It's the French. And of all the people in the world, I'd say that they have good palates for flavor. So they've picked a good one in single malt. And funnily enough, Aberlour is actually the number one selling single malt in France. So we get the double whammy there.
And Aberlour has been around since the 19th century.
Yeah, so we like to call Aberlour, rather than a startup, we like to call it a slow up. It's been around since 1879. So 141 years ago. And
for the amateur, for someone who is jumping on this podcast, watching this video chat, who's just kind of unfamiliar, explain the difference between Scotch and whiskey, all the nuances.
So, I mean, the difference between Scotch and whiskey. So whiskey is the family name, if you like. And a lot of people in the United States get whiskey mixed up because they call American whiskey, but whiskey's the family name. So, and Scotch is just the name for whiskey that's produced and matured in Scotland. So, for example, Aberlour is totally produced and locally sourced in the Highlands of Scotland. And then we mature it in Scotland in barrels. It rests in barrels for years and years and years. And then we bottle it. And that's what makes it Scotch, essentially. The fact that we're using a grain, yeast, and water. It's made in Scotland. Or that's the big thing. And that's why it gets called Scotch. Now, if you make, for example, a whiskey in Ireland, it gets called Irish whiskey. If you make a whiskey in the United States, it's American whiskey. If you make it explicitly from corn and you use virgin oak wood to mature the whiskey, then it becomes bourbon, right? So there's just slight nuances. And essentially when we talk about Scotch or we talk about Japanese whiskey or we talk about Irish whiskey, it's just telling you, it's just denouncing where it's from. You know, it just basically says, oh, this is from, or denotes rather where it's from. This is from Ireland or Scotland or Japan and so on.
Take us through what the Aberlour product line offers. Take us through the 12, the 18, the 8.
So I have the 12 here. We're not going to drink the 12 neat. I'm actually going to save that for the cocktail.
I like how you say
right
we.
Up.
You mean you.
yeah. And then this one, so I have a bunch of Aberlour in my house, but obviously it's a Friday night. I'm in my house by myself. I don't want to go doing like a 4 or 5 different whiskey tasting. So I picked my favorite. Aberlour. This is the Aberlour 16-year-old. I have it in my glass here. You can see that lovely amber gold color.
Mm-hmm.
The Aberlour 16 is my favorite because it's got just a beautiful balance to it. It suits every occasion. And it's just got that lovely, rich, floral and fruity flavor. But those are the first 2 in the line, the 12-year-old and the 16-year-old. And then we also have the 18-year-old, which is the most expensive in the range. That comes in at around $120, $130 here in Chicago, depending on where you shop. And then we also have 2 different bottles of whiskey, which are called the Abuna and the Abuna Alba. I actually have a bottle of the Alba next door. Maybe if I get a quick break, I'll run through and grab it. And then we've got the Cascanam, which is a US exclusive along with the Alba. And then we've also got some small exclusives. For example, here in Chicago this year, we launched a Chicago exclusive. It was a 15-year-old Scotch. And that came in with only 204 bottles. So we sold 204 bottles across Chicago. So I'm sure that hopefully someone that's listening might actually know a little bit about that and might have tried it themselves. So we did like a kind of design competition in September, and the winner was from Chicago, and she got to design the box that the whiskey came in, and we flew over 204 bottles of the special whiskey just for that purpose. So it's pretty cool.
That's super cool. All right, wait, hang on. I'm just doing some technology stuff. All right.
No problem.
So we're all sequestered. We're all locked indoors. We are sheltering at home. Where can we get Aberlour right now?
You can get Aberlour. I mean, there's a bunch of different spots. Obviously, right now, we've got bars that are closed. Usually, though, you know, any good whiskey bar across the city will have it. Some of my personal favorites are places like the Drum Bar. I love the Travail at the Langham Hotel. I also love Beacon Tavern, the Gauge, and then there's some kind of neighborhood bars as well, such as Sportsman's, the Red Lion. These are all great bars that you can find this stuff. And then if you're looking at to buy it like in a liquor store, then
which is the only option right now. I mean,
well, that is
all great places
right now.
Yeah.
So any liquor store really will do it. You know, for example, you could even go into a supermarket like Plum Market on the north side. You could do Binny's, of course, which is probably the most prolific name that we'll hear of off-trade places that you can do, or liquor stores that you can buy it in. And then there's also
Binny's is growing so fast. I think there's one in my basement now. Every time I turn around, there's a new one.
There might be, and you wouldn't know because they're so sneaky. They're fast, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then there's also another really nice place that I like, which is a little bit more about supporting local, which is called Warehouse Liquors, and that's on the south side of the Loop. So it's a beautiful store, and the owner there, Eugene's a really nice guy, and he's massively into Aberlour, and he's got a great knowledge on it as well.
Right on. All right, so you're going to demo. You're gonna make us a whiskey sour tonight. What are you going to make?
So, well, to be honest, I wanted to talk a little bit about whiskey in itself and tasting it like this. I've basically just picked up a wine glass, or I think this is like a kind of champagne kind of glass here. Mm-hmm. And this is so that I can drink my 16. I've actually added a wee bit of water to this. I like to add a little bit of water. It just kind of brings the alcohol content down and makes it easier to drink.
That's not considered sacrilege?
No. And a lot of people think that. A lot of people think that if you add water or if you add ice even to whiskey, then it's sacrilege. It's not at all. And honestly, it's more just about adding whatever you want to it to enjoy it the best way you can. And we'll see that in a second when when we make the cocktail with the Aberlour 12. I mean, a lot of people get kind of bogged down in these things, you know, and at the end of the day, it's about enjoying whiskey however you like, you know. And sometimes people say, oh, does that mean that I can add Coca-Cola or Red Bull? I don't recommend that. I would always recommend to try it on its own with a little drop of water. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you're buying the stuff, you deserve to drink it however you like. I'm a whiskey sour fanatic. Like, I'm going to make us a whiskey sour in a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do it and my favorite way of doing it. But, you know, people get really obsessed with this kind of stuff, man.
Sure.
You know? And it's more just, like I say, it's more just about enjoying it. And taking the time to really appreciate all the craftsmanship that's gone into it. For example, when we talk about Aberlour 12 or we talk about Aberlour 16, that means that it's rested for that amount of years in the barrel. So the Aberlour 12 was created or was produced 12 years ago, back in 2008. And that was when it was put into barrels to steep, to rest rather. And the 16, likewise, back in 2004. So this whiskey's come a long way from Scotland to get to your glass. And it's always nice to make sure that you're enjoying it with high quality ingredients or on its own, you know?
So if we drink a whiskey that was made in 2008, that was the time of the recession. It seems like an appropriate symbolic time. Remember that last time we all really just lost our shit? Cheers.
Well, at the time I was only 16 in 2008. I don't want to make anyone feel old, but I wasn't drinking whiskey back then. I knew a lot about it, but I wasn't drinking it, unfortunately. And it was only until obviously I got to 18 in Scotland, and then it would have been 21 here. But thankfully, it's only 18, the legal drinking age in Scotland. But yeah, I mean, so I suppose there's a little bit of symbolism there. I also think
just
as well that
facetious. I mean, really.
no, but I mean, but I think there is a little bit. I think that something that's been really, really cool for me over the past few days is that we're doing things that we never would have thought we would have done without this quarantine. You know, I was going into people's offices doing tastings. We do free tastings across Chicago in people's offices. And it's a great experience. People learn a lot. But yesterday, for example, I did a virtual happy hour, and people had a lot of questions, and everybody had their own bottle of whiskey, and it was a really, really nice feeling. And something that I was speaking to my father, but my dad still lives in Scotland, but he was saying that that's something very, very typical of a recession. It's very, very typical of these kind of moments that people have a drink. You know, they have a drink together. And my boss, he'll shoot me for saying this, but he has a great cliche. My boss always says that water is what separates the world, but whiskey's what brings it together. So that's a great way to kind of look at this, you know, look at this kind of thing. If you do have a bottle of whiskey in your house, maybe share one. And even if your pal who's over the road from you can't come over and enjoy one, maybe he's got a bottle himself that he could have together. So there is solidarity in that.
Absolutely. I want to say hi to Jessica, Christina, and Natalie, who are all watching right now. Thank you for watching this Facebook Live broadcast.
Jessica, Christina, and Natalie, great to have you in the party. Hopefully everybody's got... Do you have a drink with you? Do you have a wee drink?
I don't have a wee drink. I don't have a big drink, a wee drink, any drink.
Do you want me to give you a quick 10 seconds and I can talk about this and you can get yourself a drink?
Keep doing your thing. thing.
Okay. So this is like I said, this is the Aberlour 16-year-old. And I think one of the key things with Aberlour and with a lot of Scotch whiskies in general is that we have to realize that they're not as smoky as people might have thought, you know. People have this idea of Scotch that it smells a little bit like a wet dog and it tastes like an ashtray. Okay, that's not the kind of thing that we're kind of looking for. With Aberlour, there's no smoky flavors whatsoever, and all of the barley that we use, all of the grain that we use to make Aberlour is sourced within 15 miles of the distillery. So this is stuff that, like I said before, the 16 is a whiskey that I can drink any time of the day. Obviously not too early because you know you got to look after yourself, but this is a perfect whiskey to get started on. And if you are looking to get yourself into Scotch, the Aberlour 12 and the 16 are both great whiskies to try. The main reason for that is that we use a method called double cask maturation. And double cask maturation essentially means that we use two different types of barrel to mature the whiskey. So as I mentioned before, you know, the 12-year-old would have been produced in 2008, and we put it into barrels then. But what we did was when the whiskey comes out of the distillery, which is basically the factory that we make the whiskey in, when the whiskey comes out of the distillery, we put it into barrels. And with Aberlour, we put it into two different types of barrel. One barrel is called an Oloroso sherry barrel. So it's very, very dark, dark fruit flavor that the barrel gives to the whiskey. And then the other barrel is a bourbon barrel, which comes, of course, from the land of the free and the home of the brave, United States of America. Put your hand on your chest if you're at home. Stand up if you have to.
America.
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 I've got a Scotland flag behind me because I thought I would represent, but
For sure.
So those two types of barrels, what they do is they give different flavor to the whiskey. And because the whiskey's sitting amongst that wood for such a long time and it's resting in the wood for so long, the whiskey actually absorbs a lot of the flavor from the wood. So one is this bourbon barrel, and it gives this kind of lovely vanilla honey sweetness. There's a little bit of citrus there, like apples and pears. And then we've got the sherry barrel, which is this obviously lovely dark fortified wine, which gives these dark fruit flavors like figs and dates and raisins. I nearly said onions, not onions, ladies and gentlemen, not onions.
That'd be weird. Can I ask before you have a sip of that? Do you play? Yeah, I see the guitar in the background. Do you play music?
I do play a bit of guitar, and actually, I probably should have put that down, but I just bought that guitar today. It's a travel guitar, and I was very, very lucky because there's a local shop here in Chicago. It's just down the corner from me. I live in Ukrainian Village, and it's called Tommy's Guitars and Trading Post. And these guys were so nice to me. They're totally shut, but I called them and they're working on their website, and they offered to help me out with a guitar. So they did me a special delivery, which was very, very nice of them, and I really appreciate it. But I probably should have put that down. I totally forgot. I've just noticed now.
I'm glad you left it up. This podcast is all about music, so that's cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I mean, Tommy's guitars. I mean, you should get in touch with these guys. They were amazing with me today, and they gave me this guitar a little bit of a discount because they were like, you were local. They gave me a capo. They really, really helped me out. So it was a pretty cool experience, and I've been playing all day. My fingers are killing me.
I get it. All right, sorry to distract you from.
Not at all. So if you're sitting at home and you're watching and you've got yourself a wee glass of wine, or maybe you're really lucky and you've got yourself some scotch or maybe some whiskey in general, a lot of people talk about how there's several, there's different steps to drinking it, but I'm going to keep it very, very short. We often talk about the first step being the color. Like you'll see this like kind of lovely golden color there to it.
It is lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's it's liquid gold, as it's sometimes known as. And then after that, we nose it, or the smell, or the aroma, if you like, of the whiskey. And the 16, I've added a wee bit of water, so there's not too much. There's not this kind of hard, harsh alcohol note there. It's very, very, very sweet and easy to smell. It's actually a little bit perfumey. It's got like a kind of lovely fruity smell to it.
What does that step do for you? Does it kind of open up your senses to taste it better? Explain that step.
To give you an idea, I've been working in whiskey now I've been around whiskey for years and years, but I've been working in this kind of capacity for 4 years. And I smell it because your sense of smell is so much stronger than your sense of taste. It's so much stronger. There's millions and millions and millions of different sensories that go on in your nose compared to, a couple hundred maybe on your tongue, or maybe even less, right? And your nose, what happens with your nose as well, and I don't know if you've ever had this, but your nose is a very evocative sense. So sometimes you smell something and it transports you immediately to a moment in time.
Absolutely.
And you didn't mean that. I think for me, for example, when I smell this, I think of like Scotland, and obviously I would, but I think of like rolling hills in the north of Scotland and the Aberlour distillery, and like there's a waterfall in the back of the Aberlour distillery. It's called Lynn Falls. And every time I go to the distillery, every time I drink a bunch of these with the master distiller, or every time I'm drinking a bunch of these with the people that work there, I wander up the path up the back of the distillery, and I'll usually stand, and occasionally people get into the water, which is freezing. I don't recommend that. But I'll usually stand there and just kind of take it all in. And that's one of the beauties of this thing, is that, Scotch has been around for hundreds of years. The first time we see it was in the late 1400s, and written down. And it's definitely something that I'm very, very proud of to represent, So when I smell Aberlour, and when I smell this one particularly, it's got like a lovely sweetness to it, like almost like a caramel sweetness. And those kind of raisins and dates come through as well, that dark fruit side of things. And there is a little bit of that vanilla honey sweetness too that I mentioned. and that's one of the reasons that I love this one so much. It's got a lovely balance to it. So I'm just going to get stuck into the important part, which is obviously the drinking part.
Absolutely.
In
Cheers.
Scotland, we say sláinte. So if you're listening back home and if you're watching back home and you're drinking, sláinte. Okay,
Sláinte.
it means health or cheers.
And we're all envious as we're watching you drink that.
Liquid gold.
There it is.
It's lovely. It's got such a lovely, rounded, balanced flavor to it. Like I said, there's no smokiness there, so it's very, very, very easy to drink. I was also
here's the thing, Callum. We're watching you do this. You must be very good at your job, because the second I hang up on this call, I'm calling the neighborhood liquor store. I'm calling Benny's downstairs in my basement. I'm getting a bottle of 12 because I'm just watching you, and I'm all in. Like, sold. Let's drink. Let's have some scotch.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy thing to sell, right? It's been, I mean, this is 16 years old, this stuff, so it has a lot of history to it, a lot of heritage. I mean, what we can do as well is I'll maybe put this. In fact, I'll maybe just finish this because it's very tasty.
Seems only right. It's International Whiskey Day on Quarantine Con Carne.
Woo, it's good. Do you watch? Are you a big film guy?
I am. In fact, it kills me that I subscribe to the AMC A list. I thought this was brilliant. You spend like $20 a month. You see up to 3 movies a week. I love to see movies that no one in my family ever wants to see with me. So I just go to the movies by myself all the time. I can't do that now. The point is, I love film.
I mean, I adore film. And one of my favorite films, I'm a big Tarantino fan, and one of my favorite films is a film called Inglourious Bastards.
Sure.
And I'm sure everybody's seen it. In that film, Michael Fassbender plays a British officer, a British spy, if you like, who's impersonating a German officer. But he was originally born in Peterborough, right? And he says in that film, just before the proverbial shit hits the fan, if you like, he says in that film, there's a special rung in hell for men who waste good scotch. So I'm glad that we got to finish that, you know. So let's talk a little bit now about this cocktail, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my microphone up here. Try my best.
I can hear you. You sound good.
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Still hear me?
The camera was bouncing a little bit, making your couch bounce a little bit in the frame, so I got a little seasick there, but I'm okay now.
I've put on my quarantine 10.
Oh, I think they're calling it the Quarantine 15, only because it rhymes and it sounds better.
It'll be the Quarantine 15 by next week, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, I tore through a sleeve of Oreos about 2 hours ago.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make a whiskey sour. Okay, so to make a whiskey sour, it's by far and away my favorite cocktail. And it's the kind of cocktail that is great when you go into a bar and you kind of want to see what the bar's all about, you know.
See, here's the thing. I always perceive the whiskey sour as kind of like a starter cocktail. Like when you start drinking, that's like the first drink you order. It seemed like the safest drink.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the reason that I like it is that everybody has their kind of own version of a whiskey sour. People add things and they take things away, and a lot of people add a lot of bitters to it. My bitters are just through there. I will get them in a second, but a lot of people add different things to it, and that's the beauty of it, right? For a whiskey, the basics of a whiskey sour are very, very, very simple. What you need is some simple syrup. Okay, that might look like whiskey, but it's actually kind of like a sugar syrup.
Just sugar and water, right?
Yeah, sugar and water. And I've used brown sugar there. And the way that I like to do it is I like to do 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So it's quite sweet, and it just means that I don't have to use nearly as much in the mix. You're also going to need one of these, which is
egg.
What? An egg. Okay, it's definitely an egg. What came first, the whiskey sour or the egg?
Wait, that's really an egg?
Yeah, it's really an egg. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're also going to need, which is where? Oh, yeah, here it is. This is so I squeezed some fresh lemon juice here.
Yum.
And this is essentially your sour that's going to give, obviously, it's going to lend itself to the sour itself. That was 100% lemon juice. I'm really, really big on using fresh ingredients, but I know that a lot of people at home, for example, they might not have time to squeeze 10 lemons on a Friday night, right? So even if you buy these little bottles that are freshly squeezed lemon juice, that'll do you absolutely fine.
Sure.
Go on.
No, I'm listening. I'm nodding
And then, of course, the most important part is that you've got yourself a little bottle of scotch. A lot of people like to use bourbon. I think it's too sweet, and I actually like my whiskey sour to be on the sour side rather than on the sweet side. And that's about it. You'll also need ice, which of course in Chicago, 90% of the year, it's not very hard to find. So as simple as this, what we're going to do is I'm going to crack this egg, okay, and just get the egg yolk, sorry, not the yolk, the white rather, into the shaker, just like this. Now, the reason for that is that the egg white gives us this lovely kind of frothy texture. And if you've ever had a really good whiskey sour, ladies and gents, it will feel kind of smooth. It's like a very, very, very smooth and easy to drink cocktail. So just getting all that egg white out like that, it's very, very difficult without a bar, but we're going to make do.
We're all making it up as we go.
That's okay.
As we're sheltering at home.
So I'm going to put that just over here in my glass here so I can throw that away.
You know, you talked about doing tastings for offices. I know an office that would love to have you come do a tasting. I'm confident the office I work for would
they're always welcome to reach out. You know, I mean, we absolutely love doing it at Aberlour. Give them my number, give them my Zoom, give them my everything. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm putting 1 ounce of this fresh lemon juice. Okay, the 1 ounce is going straight into the shaker with the egg white. Okay, now because I'm a bit of a whiskey sour fanatic, I'm also going to add another 1/4 ounce there, just because I really, really like my whiskey sour, sour, if you like. And I'm already getting that kind of that lovely fresh lemon smell. Very, very nice. Then, this was the little mix that I was preparing when we first got on the call. This is my simple syrup, if you like. Out here in Chicago, I've actually been meeting a lot of people that like to use agave, so like agave syrup. I'm more of a traditional guy. I'm all about the brown sugar in the water. Like I said, 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. 1 ounce of that into the shaker. Okay, I actually did a little bit less than 1 ounce because once again, like I said, I'm big on it being sour rather than sweet. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the most important part, okay, we're going to add 2 ounces of our Aberlour 12, okay? Now, the thing that I'm holding in my right hand for the measure, this is called a jigger. Now, a lot of people at home might not have one of these, but you can use anything that's going to give you measurements. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you a good measurement for that. One last thing, before I shake this bad boy up, what you'll do is you'll notice that I've put all my ingredients into the smaller shaker. If I put all my ingredients into the big shaker and fill it with ice, sometimes it overfills because when I put the wee one on, then you're going to get it. So now, I don't want you to get too excited, okay, but I'm going to take my jacket off.
I'm very excited. Oh my God. My jacket off. It is a Friday night.
It is a Friday night. I might even just get it one of those, throw it over there like that.
This is the best cam show I've ever seen.
Well, listen,
I've got some tokens for you, my friend.
If you want to join my OnlyFans, it's $3 a month. So what we're gonna do. This is the important part of the whiskey sour part. Making the whiskey sour. I'm gonna shake it without ice first. Okay. So I'm gonna pour that in there, all that mix in there,
just to make sure everything's well blended before you chill it.
Well, the reason for that, and I'm gonna shake this for about 8 seconds. Now, the reason for that is that what we do is when we have the egg white there, we want it to froth. You know, we want it to be foamy. It's sure. Almost like it gives it this kind of smooth texture, spongy feel to it. So you'll actually you won't be able to see it there, but you might see it in that pour there.
Yep.
It's got this lovely kind of frothy texture to it.
It does.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this with ice. Okay. We're getting close to the good part now where you get to drink it.
I'm feeling it, Callum.
Fill this one with ice. Pour the ice into the shaker. And then, like I said last time, we're going to shake for about 8 seconds. Now, this time I'm just going to talk you through what I'm doing when I'm shaking. What I want to do is I want to put my thumb on this small shaker here, 4 fingers on the side of the large, and then I'm putting my 4 fingers on the bottom here. And then what you want to do is you kind of really, it's at the end of the day, you just shake it, right? Like I said, for about 8 seconds.
This is hot.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do after that, a lot of people are going to use a strainer to strain the whiskey. If I can get it open, that would be a disaster if I can't get it open.
Right.
Oh dear. Yeah, well, there we go. So it might not be a whiskey sour, ladies and gentlemen. It might just be the perfect beginning, and then a sad end. Okay, here we go.
Feeling it. There it is.
So now there's a couple of ways that you can do this. A lot of people like to drink theirs on the rocks, so you can have some ice in your glass. I'm the kind of guy that I like to have it without ice. Obviously, that would be, a lot of people think that the ice dilutes it and whatnot, but it honestly doesn't really, because what happens is all the ice in the glass just keeps it cold.
Right.
I'm the kind of guy though that I don't need much time to finish my whiskey sour. So
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
It's got a lovely, lovely look to it, and that kind of foaminess on there. That kind of lovely, kind of light foaminess on the top is what is actually given to us by the egg white. So there you go.
Sláinte.
Yeah, sláinte. So that's your whiskey sour. Very nice glass as well, if I do say so myself.
As soon as this quarantine's lifted, we're coming to your place, or we'll meet you out. We'll be ready to meet out.
Oh no, I'm ready to party, man. I'm ready to party. So yeah, I mean, I think obviously, thank you so much for having me on. I'm not going to leave you just yet, but I'm going to have a big drink of this because
as you should.
It would be a waste not to. But for everybody that's at home, and for you yourself, my man, for everyone that's at home, please, stay safe during quarantine. But just staying safe doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself an Aberlour sour, or an Aber sour, if you like. But yeah, sláinte. Cheers to you all. Stay safe.
Cheers. And yeah, we all need distraction. We all need, part of self-care is doing things that make you happy, and a nice, well-prepared cocktail on a Friday night. There you go. Callum's face says it all. And the whiskey cuts through enough that it's not all like super lemony.
Yeah. So I think for me, the biggest thing is that you're using a whiskey that has quite a nice flavor to it. I would say I did quite a lot of lemon there. I did an ounce, well, probably an ounce and a quarter. So, or 1 1/4 ounce, as you guys would say in the US. So there is a lot of like kind of that kind of sour flavor.
Yeah.
I didn't add a lot of the simple syrup though. I never really do. I don't like to have a lot of simple in my drinks. And then on the when I'm pouring my whiskey, you really want to make sure you're getting 2 ounces there, all the way to the top, all the way to the brim. I used to work with a guy. I'm going to have a seat now because obviously
I think you should.
It's all done.
You've earned the rest.
Now I'm also using one of these, which is my Aberlour coaster. And if anybody would like one of these, we actually give these away for free. So this is a free thing that you can do, and you can just I'll send you a link after this.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, I think that for me, obviously, the most important thing is obviously the whiskey coming through. But like I said, I used to work with a guy who would do 2 ounces of whiskey and into the cocktail, and then he would say, "And for your friends and family," and he would always drop a little bit extra in there, which is always nice, And
it seems thoughtful. Yeah.
If you're at a good bar in Chicago and someone says "for your friends and family," then it's definitely something that you should consider, and you should probably go back there when you get a second.
Absolutely. I want to say hi to Robert and Jose who've joined the chat. Callum, we already talked about where you can get Aberlour.
Mm-hmm.
Aberlour, the website is just aberlour.com.
Yeah, so I think I think it's aberlour.com, but if you're on Instagram, you can find us at Aberlour_US. And any questions that you feel to them there, they'll be able to answer. And you can also find me personally at Aberlour Chicago, all one word. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's Aberlour spelled like that, ABERLOUR, and then ABERLOUR, and then Chicago, all together. And you'll find me on Instagram. You can drop me a message and I'll respond. And it'll also mean that, if I'm ever out and about and I post on my story or something, then you can always come and see me for a drink and I'll buy you a dram.